Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. So first off, I want to apologise for the lighting situation. Not only am I filming this at 5:15, so I've just finished work, and you know the nights are getting darker already, but also because of the fact that it's 5:15, it's now rush hour traffic, and my bedroom faces the main road, so if there's a lot of light movement, it's all the cars rushing past me. So I do apologise for all that. I think at this point I've got to admit that I need to reacquaint myself with my ring light. Been a while since I've had to use it, but I think we're getting there. But I'm back here today to do yet another book haul. I thought that doing more regular book hauls was going to be a good way to keep me accountable and to stop me from buying so many books, but I feel like the opposite seems to have happened. Every time I wipe the slate clean and I start compiling my list of things that I've bought recently, and apparently something in my brain just goes, let's just keep adding to that list. So apparently these are now going to be like an every month or so thing. So without much further ado, let's just get into these books, shall we? I'm just going to go in order of when I picked things up, and first off we have Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin. This is the history of the Targaryens that he came out with a few years ago, going from Aegon's conquest of Westeros, which is a good 300 years before the main events of A Song of Ice and Fire, up until I presume the present day, but I'm not quite sure. I have not looked into this lore. I mainly picked this up because I have started watching House of the Dragon and really enjoying it, which was very unexpected considering that I'm not actually a massive Targaryen girl. I'm much more of a House Stark girl at heart, but because I'm getting so into the series, I thought I would go back and look at the writing that inspired the show. I know that this is meant to be like a maester of the Citadel writing a history of Westeros, writing a history of House Targaryen, and therefore you've got to take a lot of things with a pinch of salt, knowing that the maesters are not always the most reliable, objective writers. And so I find that really, really interesting, seeing how George R.R. Martin is playing with this constructed history. I've read maybe about 50 pages of this so far. I'm not that far into it, but I am really enjoying this as kind of like a bit of a thought experiment. It's probably one that I would say is more for completionists to the series, people who like the history and the lore of the series. I don't think it's one that I'm going to read cover to cover. I'll just probably dip in and out as I see fit. And yeah, enjoy. If you're a fan of the series, pick this up. And next up, going down a very, very different track, is Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid, the newest book by the author of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Malibu Rising and Daisy Jones and the Six. I almost forgot her books. I am a very big fan of Taylor Jenkins Reid. I think I've read about 5 of her books so far and enjoyed all of them. They were all 4 stars or more, and so I absolutely had to give this a go. This is the story of a fictional tennis player who retired at the top of her game, the undisputed champion. However, a few years have gone by and now her title has been claimed. A new up-and-comer is kind of the challenge to the record that she set previously, and so Carrie Soto decides that she is going to go back into the race, back into professional tennis playing in order to reclaim her title. And I guess a lot of ghosts are going to be uncovered. I get from the blurb that she is meant to be quite an unlikable character, she's not really much of a media darling, and so she struggles with that. And also it's going to put her back in proximity to people in her past that she'd rather forget, people she's got unfinished business with. I don't know all of the details, but it sounds really, really interesting. This probably would have been a great book for me to read actually in the summer, but no matter, I'm sure I'm probably going to get to this one very soon because I can't stay away from a good Taylor Jenkins Reid book. Next up is another anticipated release from an author that I have read and loved work of previously, and that is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. Maggie O'Farrell probably most well known right now for her book Hamnet, which won the Women's Prize for Fiction. With this, Maggie O'Farrell is going back to historical fiction, going back to the early modern period, but this time we are in Renaissance Italy, and in this we are following the life of Lucrezia de Medici, of which not much is known about her aside from the fact that she did marry and die very young, and it is presumed that she may have been murdered by her husband. That is not a spoiler, that is something that is mentioned in the very first sentence of this book. And yeah, I'm not really sure what to expect from this. What I've heard from a lot of people is that spoiler, so to speak, is not really a spoiler, and that it's not really about the lead up to this murder. It's everything around it that you're meant to be paying attention to, in a similar way that Hamnet is not about the death of Hamnet, it's about the world that he grows up in, it's about his mother and his father. And I'm very much looking forward to this. I feel like after having such an up and down relationship with Hamnet, where I ended up really enjoying it and eventually being really swept away by the emotions, I'm hoping the same is going to hold true for this, and that I'm going to learn some things about a historical figure of whom I did not know much about. And despite it being such a popular historical topic, I don't actually read that much to do with Renaissance Italy, and I really should, so I'm hoping that this is going to be a good gateway into that world. Next up, jumping backwards and forwards between different genres, we have Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood, another book where I have loved the previous book by this author. I read The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood a few months ago, back on my holiday. Ali Hazelwood is the global bestseller and TikTok sensation, and therefore I'm very much hoping that this book from her is going to be just as enjoyable. I actually don't know too much about the plot of this aside from the fact that it is romance between people people in STEM. And you know, I'm all here for that. That's all I need. Another anticipated release that I picked up in the past month is Ithaca by Claire North. This was one that I actually learnt about from going to London Book Fair, and I saw that the publisher had loads of banners everywhere about this book, and it wasn't one that I'd heard anyone on BookTube talking about as an anticipated release. It was purely from London Book Fair that I learnt about this, but I had to pick this up because, as you can tell, it is an Odyssey retelling. You know me, I love a Greek myth retelling, and I also love Odysseus and the Odyssey and hearing more stories from him and his family. So this is going to be an Odyssey retelling, but very much from the perspective of Penelope. Think things like Margaret Atwood's The Penelopiad or Natalie Haynes' A Thousand Ships. I hear that this is going to be a series, which makes me very intrigued as to where this is going to start and finish. I'm always really intrigued to see how different people portray Odysseus. And another book that is on my TBR is Simon Armitage's retelling of the Odyssey, so I wonder if I should read both of those books back to back and then do like a little cross comparison video. I don't know, we'll see how we go. We'll see where my mood takes me, but I'm very much looking forward to this. I haven't heard anybody talk about it, so the next recent addition to my book collection is actually something that I picked up from work. As you will probably know, I work at Princeton University Press, and one of the books that we recently published in paperback is Wollstonecraft by Sylvana Tomaselli. This is basically a biography, just a short ditty little thing, and when I saw that it was coming out into paperback, I had to get a copy for myself. We had some really nice publicity for this one, if I do say so myself. Not that I had anything to do with it, but I logged the reviews. And yeah, this is just one of the books that I'd been meaning to pick up for ages. Now that it's in paperback, I just had to snap it up. I always feel weird talking for too long about books that are actually from the publisher that I work for. I don't know, it feels like a bit of a conflict of interest, but it is a book that I'm excited about. It's a book that I'm going to read, and so if this is of interest to any of you, then here you go. It looks beautiful. And especially after I read and loved Romantic Outlaws by Charlotte Gordon, which was a dual biography of Mary Wollstonecraft and Mary Shelley's lives, I had to snap this up. I just really wanted to read more about her. Next couple of books are a little bit weird, I will admit. So I was wandering around town on a Thursday evening. Thursday evening is when I tend to have rehearsals for my musical theatre society. We are currently doing a production of Evita, just preparing for that, rehearsing for that, and I usually have a little bit of time to kill before the rehearsal starts. And so I was wandering through WH Smith's and looking in their clearance section, because we have a very good clearance section at the WH Smith's in Oxford, and I picked up a couple of things, and they are a bit weird and a bit random, but here they are. Gotta stay accountable, so you're gonna hear about them from me. The first thing that I picked up is a children's Christmas book. Apparently I am already picking up Christmas things, and that is Our Christmas Wish by Katherine Rundell. I think Katherine Rundell wrote Rooftoppers, which is a book that I haven't read, a children's book I haven't read, but one that I always thought was really intriguing. And yeah, I just thought it was really cute. It's got Christmas, it's got beautiful illustrations, and yeah, I imagine a dark December day I'll probably be picking this one up, probably reading it to my niece at some point soon. And then the next one is really a bit weird, especially because of the date that I actually picked this up. Randomly picked up the Picador book of funeral poems edited by Don Patterson, and the reason that it was a bit of a weird time for me to pick this up was that I picked it up on the 8th of September. For those of you for whom all days have lost any sense, the 8th of September was actually when the Queen died, and I probably picked this up like half an hour before the announcement was made that she actually had died, so it feels like a weird thing for me to have picked up. I've always wanted to have like a little set of poetry collections like this that are like poems for funerals, poems for weddings, poems about love, poems about friendship, or whatever. It's not something that I would read cover to cover, but something that I would have more like a reference, something that I would dip into every now and then as and when it was relevant. And yeah, I don't know, I think it was quite a gloomy day. I saw it was £3 and I thought, okay, might as well pick it up now. And then of course the announcement came and I felt like, oh, this is a bit of a weird thing for me to buy. A little morbid, but it'll come in handy, I'm sure. Next book that I picked up, going back to the Greek myth retelling, we have another greatly anticipated release, probably my most anticipated release of this year, and that is Stone Blind, Medusa's Story by Natalie Haynes. I actually ordered this through Books That Matter, which are a book subscription service. I don't take part in their like full subscription service where they send you a book every month. You can either get just the book on its own, or you can get the book along with a lot of other treats and goodies. And the good thing about it is that you can like specifically just order one book. You don't have to tie yourself down to a subscription, and that's what I ended up doing. Was I just got this one because it was a whole Greek myth inspired box. I was also really keen to pick this up through the Books That Matter, not just because of the fact that it had all of these treats and goodies, but also because the edition of the book that they were selling was one that did not have sprayed edges. All of the different ones that I've seen in bookshops have either like turquoise or black sprayed edges with like patterns and stuff that are very much mimicking the front cover, and I hate sprayed edges. Probably one of my most controversial book opinions, but I do not like them. It's just a design element that I cannot get on board with. And yeah, so I got this. It came with a sticker, it came with a cute little bookmark that matches my book. Oh, I should have said for Ithaca, I also bought it at Waterstones and got a matching bookmark to go with it too. So both my Greek myth retelling books have matching bookmarks. But yeah, this came with the bookmark, with the sticker, and with some treats. There was a vegan chocolate bar and also some skincare, which was really nice. A little full-size pot of night cream, which I've been desperately in need of. And yes, I was very much looking forward to this. This, as the title suggests, is a retelling of the life of Medusa, who I think has been demonized a lot, especially in my childhood. The depiction of Medusa that I always heard about was that she was like this scary, evil woman who turned men into stone. But actually, when you dig into her backstory, it's really tragic. And I presume that that's where this story is going, really like highlighting the tragedy of the situation. I think it's also going to be interesting for me because Athena is actually my favorite of the Greek gods, and Athena does not come off well when you were considering her role in Medusa's story. So it's going to be interesting and controversial, and I'm very much looking forward to it. The penultimate book that I picked up in the past few weeks is Burning the Books, A History of Knowledge Under Attack by Richard Ovenden. This is one that I'd seen popping up in bookshops a couple of years ago. And you know, it's a book about books, so of course I wanted to read it. It's a book about the accumulation of knowledge and also knowledge censorship, which is always a hot button topic. Let's be honest, I was also very attracted by the cover because it's so pretty. But it was one that I thought was going to be a really good addition to my history of books. Books about books, history of literacy. But it's always one that's been kind of like on the back burner. But I recently found it in a charity shop and just decided I had to get it there and then. It's also written by the director of the Bodleian Library, which is the very celebrated, famous library in Oxford. So I feel like everything was just clicking for me to pick this book up now. And then finally, the last book that I'm here to show you today is kind of seasonally appropriate, almost there. Are we almost in the time for spooky reads? Definitely, I think by the time that this video comes out, it'll be spooky time. And that is this stunning edition of Dracula by Bram Stoker. I don't know what this series is officially called, but it's one of these beautiful puffin, cloth-bound, beautiful, sparkly, foiled, gorgeousness. And yes, puffin, I do think that that should be the official name from now on. Dracula is a classic that I've been wanting to read since I was like 11 years old and went to Whitby, and the tour guide was talking about how Whitby played a large part in Dracula, and so I thought, oh, definitely something that I should read. And now 16 years later, here I am finally picking it up and reading it. Every single October, I do say that I am going to eventually pick this up. And ever since I saw this beautiful cover, I knew that this was the edition that I wanted to read it from. And so I don't know what the delay had been really, but recently I went to Burford Literary Festival, which is hosted by the Mad Hatter Bookshop. I'd never been to Burford before, so I went with work and I went into the bookshop and saw this. This was out in the children's section looking beautiful, and I thought, okay, now is the time. I've got to pick this up and I've got to read it this Halloween. You'll probably know I'm not really much of a seasonal reader, and I'm definitely not like a spooky horror reader, but this has always intrigued me. One of the original vampire books, and definitely the most inspirational, definitely the most formative one of our modern conceptions of vampires. I'm actually about halfway through it and I'm really enjoying it. It is very interesting, especially from like a historical standpoint, you know, certain themes that are popping up in here, but it is like an enjoyable read. I also started reading this like quite late at night, and I realized very quickly that that was a bad idea. I can't fault it so far for being very atmospheric and kind of wrapping you up in the story. So there we go. Those are all of the books that I've picked up most recently. Do let me know if you've got any thoughts about the books that I have shown you. Alternatively, let me know about anything that you've picked up recently. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks.